Just before watching this court appearance, I watched a video on a criminal in the 90s who thought covering their face with lemon juice would make them invisible to cameras because that's how you make invisible ink. And what I heard in this case, arguably, it sounds kind of like that in a modern context sometimes. Lori doesn't understand. What's behind me, by the way, is something else she doesn't understand. She attempted to have the current judge removed and the judge that wouldn't remove the current judge removed, and another judge told her no. I have a video on that from this morning you can watch. What's behind me is actually her complaint. I can't actually read it. I hear civil rights and some other stuff is in here. You can see certain words. This is me trying to improve the quality. This is the best I got. I'm not going to try to read it. Maybe later if someone can transcribe it or get a better, more clear version. Let's talk about the final state witness. You won't get to see their face on any live stream. They do undercover work and they begin with full affidavits by the state for appellate reasons. Lori submits a letter from Tammy LeChick that she isn't available to testify for appellate purposes. And up is Nicholas Ballance for the FBI. He gives his credentials and he works on cellular records in criminal cases. He's helped find several hundred fugitives using cellular data. He analyzed records for Lori, Alex, and the track phone burner phone. He looked at historical data from Alex Cox's Google account, created a report on his analysis. Lori doesn't object to the report being admitted. I'm surprised. She's objected to basically all other records. We can't see that data at this time because the live streamers just haven't decided to show it yet. There's actually a different screen that this stuff is up on, at least later, and I get to see some of it and I can talk about it better. He explains how Lori and Alex had their emails connected to particular phone accounts. The email was associated with Alex Cox. They talk about that one. Methodology on how the map is made on one of the pages of the document, the report. He explains how time formats work and conversions. Explains how cell tower coverage works. You know, if you're in a city, they're closer together because there's more people, so it's more precise, that type of thing. Explains what cell tower maps look like, what cell towers themselves look like, how a sector on the tower shows what direction a phone is in. Basically, the cell tower data can actually give you a direction you are away from the tower. He explains how call detail records work. You combine those with the tower lists and connections to know where someone is when they make a call. He uses colors to represent the search of different phones. The Google locations are Alex Cox's cell phone. Google provides a margin of error. For example, they can give up like 3 meters. It varies. There is a legend marking Brandon's residence, Lori's residence, Alex Cox's residence, storage unit, Walmart, and Melanie's residence. The Alex Cox Google account was associated with a device, and they give the identification number. That identification number is associated with a track phone bought in September. Multiple phones can have the same Google account attached, but only a phone with Google tracking turned on will have Google data. So yes, a lot of this is they were dumb enough to leave certain things on and collect all the data. They left their Wi-Fi on, Google account sign-ins, phone calls. It is crazy because they took the effort to get a track phone and had no understanding of how any of this worked. That's why it reminded me of the lemon juice thing. It's just a basic misunderstanding. They talk of a track phone purchase with a location and time, and that was being near a Wi-Fi hotspot that Alex Cox was near. Alex Cox was within that Walmart Wi-Fi range, and you don't have to connect to the Wi-Fi range to have it detected. It'll just basically have the signal strength will give you the distance. Lori Vallow's phone at the same time was in the same Walmart, according to the data, and got a phone call starting 2 minutes before the burner phone was purchased. The phone call was 10 minutes, so if you get a call 2 minutes before a purchase, and the call's 10 minutes, you're on the phone during the purchase, right? She's one of those. And who is she talking to? Melanie. Melanie was on the phone with Lori while the track phone was being purchased. The next day, the cell phone made a call from Alex Cox's apartment, which the police previously showed Lori was spending time at, because her apartment was empty. Which is really interesting when you remember, her apartment is empty when they show up, right? Looks like no one's ever moved in. Now she's spending time there. Why was she there if nothing's there? They show Alex Cox's phone on September 30th moving to Lori Vallow's apartment with a margin of error of 15 meters. 94 separate readings show it there. Next is a track phone being used in Idaho. Then on the 1st, it gets a call from Chad Daybell once it's in Arizona. They confirm Alex's Google account connected to that track phone. They track Alex Cox's cell phone at the Lori Vallow rented storage unit. Yes, isn't that interesting? And the time that we saw Lori Vallow on video alone at the storage unit on October 1st, Alex Cox's cell phone data shows that it was there. But Lori was also using her phone at the storage unit. She was talking to Melanie. I have no idea how Melanie does not get charges after this. The public pressure is going to be so massive, especially once we get a verdict. The track phone on October 2nd moved around and ended up at Brandon's residence. So they have the track phone at Brandon's residence, 7:18 a.m. right by his address. At 8:02, Lori's phone in Idaho calls Alex's phone in Idaho for 23 minutes. And according to the data, they're right by each other. Alex's phone never moved back to his own apartment on October 2nd. So Lori's apartment, that they have talked about being like completely empty, had Lori and Alex's phone in it while they were trying to create an alibi, while simultaneously the phone data they were trying to use to create an alibi is what proved they were committing all the crimes, because they didn't understand phone data. Chad Daybell was calling the track phone minutes before Brandon's shooting. Before the shooting of Brandon. Minutes. They show the track phone escaping after the shooting, and it's consistent in the direction that Brandon said the shooter went. And then while escaping, the track phone called Chad Daybell. Now, before and after the shooting, Lori had 5 calls. Before the shooting, called Chad. Called Melanie for 35 minutes. Chad had a 2-minute call to Lori while Lori was talking to Melanie. It could have been call waiting. And then after talking to Melanie, Chad called Lori again a few minutes later. It looks like Melanie was on the phone with Lori during the shooting, or at least right around that time. Isn't that fascinating, everyone? Fascinating. And that track phone was never used again after October 2nd. They show Lori and Chad's phone at the storage unit at the same time. They're on video. They show Lori and Alex's phones at the storage unit at the same time on October 3rd. So, again, it's tied together, and there's another Chad call to Lori, and the state's done. I skipped a bunch because it's really hard to follow the phone stuff. There's a lot of technical jargon. A lot of it involves photos, but you get the idea. These people tried to use phone data in a cover-up and are so bad at it, it buried them. Literally, they have to keep explaining. You'll hear soon with Lori. They chose to have a lot of this tracking on, and their choice to be tracked is what got them caught. They are so bad at this. Lori asks, what if you had 3 devices with the same Google account? You can see each individual location for a device and just sort that data. It doesn't mix it. He explains that the devices would have to have location records on. The records says which device tag is reported. He got records from Rexburg by email, he thinks, but he said they also have methods to send larger files. Lori asked if like a hard drive or a flash drive. No, electronically, digitally. Lori doesn't seem to know enough about tech to be trying to do a crime involving a cover-up using tech. He doesn't recall if it was email or another transfer method. Lori asks how he knows that the information is accurate. If he can't remember who he got it from, there's an authentication record, and he just maps what he sent, so he can't for 100% say it wasn't altered before he got it. He would have had more data if he got the phone, but that more data doesn't mean he could have tracked it better. It would just show more consistencies. Many people have more than one device connected to a Google account. Records can show location, but the margin of error of different records can differ. Lori asks if you have a kid at an amusement park on a phone and they go on a bunch of rides, that might show them in lots of places they aren't. The guy asks her to rephrase, and Lori lets out, I don't know if it was a gasp or a laugh. Like she just got him on something. And then Lori tries to suggest, I think, what if someone else had your phone? He says he reports where the device was located. He locates devices. And I also have a note here. If Lori paid attention, that's bad. Because the exact thing showing the devices showed she was part of the conspiracy by faking the call between her and Alex's phone. And also, she was alone with Alex's phone while at the storage unit. Like that, the fact they're tracking the device proves the conspiracy. Part of it. October 3rd was the last. October 3rd, it was Alex's phone at the storage unit. Track phone last pinned October 2nd, southeast of Salt Lake City. Lori confused degrees of tower direction with meters of distance. Lori tries to make a statement about both apartments being in the same direction, but she's kind of confused. Lori asks how he can tell the difference between apartments in that particular usage. It could be anything in that cover area from Verizon, but the Google location history gives a tighter margin of error. He explains it was two different record types to show each of their phones at Walmart. One was Google, one was Verizon. It would be a stretch to say an aisle someone is in at Walmart. Ask if you had the phone. Could you be more accurate? Maybe. Depends on app records. It's a different record, not necessarily better. Location sharing recorded is based on what you opt in or out of, which is, remember, that means that they didn't opt out or they did opt in, and that's why they're caught. Basically, it's like a child being told what location data is. Lori is just asking the same question on repeat because I don't think she understands it. Google can record if a phone isn't moving. If it's reporting its location, it can still report that it's not moving. All estimates are based on records. Lori seemed to think that it was like that Jurassic Park thing, like their vision is based on movement. She seemed to think you couldn't tell if a phone wasn't moving if it was still in the same location. Not always the case. State redirect, he has reviewed these types of records before. He looked at record of authenticity and nothing seemed altered. He's just showing the data provided. They go back through connections of who was associated with what phone, just to, verify it for the jury. Alex was associated with the track phone through his Google account. Track phone just had Verizon data. More talking, explaining how mapping is done. Phone was shown within 15 meters, so it would be inside the Walmart. That's where he would look. If he was someone looking at that time for the phone, he would look inside the Walmart. Lori's phone used cell tower data only to show that it was at the Walmart at the same time as Alex Cox. The jury has no questions, and the state rests. It's lunch break, the jury's leaving, and Lori wants to do a Rule 20 motion after getting back from lunch. I think that's where they're basically like, dismiss everything. Could be wrong. We'll see. Lori seems to not be calling witnesses or testifying. They go through the jury instructions. No real arguments. Remove a part because Lori isn't making statements. Remove something because it's actually from the last trial. They did add a mere present statement, although the judge made it clear to Lori that it doesn't really apply to the storage unit video because that's part of the conspiracy. But after her motion, the judge says that Lori can tell the jury when they come in that she rests, and then they can move right on the closing argument. So we are possibly on verdict watch tonight. We're probably not getting it tonight, but that's what we're sitting at. But again, it's Lori. Who knows if she'll claim she's sick at lunch? We'll see. We are back, and I have to begin with some courtroom audience drama that wasn't on the live feed. Thanks to Nate Eaton's reporting, we know about it. A bailiff said if you take photos, you will be removed, and that he heard people take photos while the undercover FBI agent was there. Judge's assistant asked two people to leave the courtroom and said if you take photos, you will be escorted out of the building. Two people were asked to leave, and they were soon allowed back into their seats. Lori does her Rule 20 motion. She wants an acquittal. She claims the only evidence is she put items into a storage unit, phones connected to her made calls, and a Google search about Gilbert, Arizona. State responds there's substantial evidence, burner phone, lending Jeep, removed seat, and more. Judge says state has a compelling case, talked of evidence. Lori's motion is denied. Lori makes sure again that the Tammy LaChick letter is submitted for appellate purposes, because of course she's going to appeal this. The jury gets brought in. Lori rests in front of the jury. Yes, a second trial where she just gives up. But, spoiler, she is going to try to make giving up her defense. Quite wild, actually. They go through the jury instructions. I'm not going to read that to you. Trina K is up. It begins with, who would want to kill you? That is a question Officer Marianne Robb asked Brandon when she arrived. Now, by the way, this is not going to be exact transcript. These are my notes to get you the important parts. That is a question Detective Pillar asked Brandon. Brandon gave the exact same answer. 2 names, Lori Vallow, the woman seated over here, and Alexander Cox. He believed the shooting had something to do with an incident in Chandler a couple months before this. I really wish they got to tell it. I'm just worried. I'm worried they're going to think that they're hiding something because they don't want the jury to know because it would prove her innocent, rather than it's so outrageously evil that if the jury knew, she would be 100% convicted, right? I hope that doesn't help her. She's trying for it too. He pointed them to that incident in Chandler. He told them Lori Vallow had lived in Texas and the Jeep used was from Texas. He told them what happened. A Jeep usually close to his driveway waiting. No tire, Texas license plate, 2-door Wrangler. Noticed the window go up. He saw the rifle come out. He saw what he thought was a silencer, and he heard a bang. He saw his window shatter, and a bullet hit the frame of his car, and it hit right next to his ear, inches away from his head. Brandon drove off, called 911, panting in panic from what he had just experienced. This defendant's co-conspirator also drove off immediately, Googling how to get back to Idaho Falls using back roads. Brandon gave the correct names, but had no idea the amount of planning, the premeditation. Much of it began in Idaho. I want to discuss it in timeline form. It leads to one conclusion: this defendant was involved in the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. After going through some of the jury instructions, because of course they always do that, and how the evidence proves the defendant guilty, they talk about some of the so-called defenses. There was no shooting. Melanie did it. Or maybe just the defendant wasn't involved. June 25th. Brandon learns the defendant has been feeding lies to Melanie, telling Melanie things like Brandon hacked her computer, Brandon was gay, Brandon was trying to take her Temple recommend away. Brandon heard these things from Charles, the defendant's husband at the time. Charles told Brandon Lori was telling lies. Brandon texted Lori about the lies and destroying his marriage. Lori didn't respond. Now we have to talk about the incident in Chandler on July 11th, Arizona. The incident that Brandon told detectives about. Lori was there. The Jeep Wrangler was there. Brandon has his own vehicle. He can drive his truck wherever he wants. As Brandon seeks a mediator for his divorce, Lori and Alex Cox moved to Rexburg, Idaho. Their Google data shows it. As part of the divorce, Melanie got her own residence and they sold the marital home. After it sold, Brandon rented a new residence and told a handful of people the address. Melanie asked for it on September 17th and he provided it to her. Why wouldn't he? The only people who knew were neighbors and a couple friends, 5 people. But the only person who knew this location and knew the only person who knew this location and knew the defendant referred to her as a mom figure. Basically, I think I worded this poorly. Basically, they're saying the only person connected to Lori was Melanie. This defendant, Lori Vallow, is the only one who would have known that address so that Alex could go after her. So basically, it's a daisy chain. Melanie tells Lori, Lori tells Alex. Brandon moved in early because Melanie is out of town. We know Melanie knows the address. The plan is already starting. Alex is looking for places to shoot. Tint shops for the defendant's Jeep, so even in daylight you can't see inside, so he can lie in wait. Alex searched for and found the tent shop. You can show the Google search results are legit because you can see Alex search the location and then go there with Lori's Jeep. Why put additional tint on an already tinted non-primary vehicle? Because you need a vehicle to shoot out of. The burner phone. This is the next part. The burner phone was so bad for these two. The burner phone, when it was purchased, Alex Cox's phone is there. Lori's phone is using a cell tower there. An out-of-town Walmart, and Lori is talking to Melanie while there. The phone is only used for one trip to Gilbert, Arizona and back. When the phone is active, Melanie flies up to visit the defendant. Brandon has the kids and Melanie knows he will give them back October 2nd. So when he is shot and killed, it won't matter. She has the kids. Remember, this is when Melanie is spending 3 days with the defendant. Alex Cox is practicing for the shooting and trying to figure out trajectory. He has to fire out of a Jeep at a moving car. He got pretty close. Almost was successful. Melanie flew back to Arizona, and then we have Alex Cox's trip. We have Lori starting the alibi defense. Why would someone carry someone else's cell phone around with them? Why make calls between them other than to make an alibi? Alex Cox has a burner phone. They'll never know. But he connected it to his Google account. Alex took his phone to Lori on the 30th, and it stayed with her until he returned on the 3rd. We know Lori searches how to remove backseat of Jeep while Alex Cox is still there. She has his phone, gives him the Jeep, makes it more comfortable for him in the back, and had to remove a tire in a back seat. No phone activity until the phone arrives in Arizona. We know the Jeep is in Arizona. Alex Cox is Googling in Arizona. Photo of the Jeep with no tire. Lori's Jeep. The burner phone is calling only Chad Daybell. Alex Cox is in Arizona. We have physical evidence, including a receipt. As much as Lori wants to talk about colors, her Jeep was in Mesa on October 1st, 2019. We can stop pretending that didn't happen. The Google search shows Alex Cox Googling the same street the restaurant is on that the receipt is from. And this is kind of the key of it, right? Everything interlocks, right? Well, maybe the Google account's wrong. Then why does the physical evidence match? Why does the location data match? Everything matches. Lori rents a storage unit to help Alex on October 1st. She has his phone, making it look like he went with her. To provide an alibi, they don't think of the Google account, license plate readers, or receipt. We know from the video she is alone with his phone, and you will see one person in the videos that are admitted, and it is Lori Vallow. Alex Cox's phone is there to try to cover up the murder for her brother. Alex Cox Googles Brandon's address, the address 5 people knew, the address that Lori's niece had, Googles it, even with the zip code. He did this on the 1st to figure out where to go in the morning because Brandon and Melanie had a set schedule. Next morning, Alex Cox Googling his home address again. That morning, the burner phone is near Melanie's home. Yes, the burner phone, from what they're saying, was Googling Brandon's address from near Melanie's home. The morning of the shooting. We know Alex is having calls with Chad Daybell, Lori's soon-to-be husband. He's moving to Brandon's home because he knows Brandon will be leaving because Melanie knows the schedule. He will be waiting. Brandon does his normal morning schedule, drops the kids off, meets with Melanie to drop the last one off. Melanie doesn't know Brandon's going to the gym. Normally he goes home. We all know it's Lori's Jeep. We all know a neighbor saw the Jeep, knew something was wrong side of the road, nose to nose, was running, dark tint. He saw the license plate. We know the burner is calling only one person, Chad Daybell, Lori's husband. We know Lori has been carrying around Alex's phone. Now she knows to make the alibi. At 8:02, she has Alex's phone call her phone for a fake 24-minute phone call. But Brandon was at the gym, making her call a little early for an alibi. But it is an alibi attempt. Lori Vallow's Jeep is outside Brandon's home waiting for him. We know that 20 minutes before Alex Cox shoots at Brandon, Lori gets a call from Melanie. Still conspiring, wondering where Brandon is. Brandon returns about 9:14 a.m. Alex Cox has been waiting almost 2 hours. He notices it standing out in the location. Knows it shoot. Almost got hit. We know from the Ring camera just before the shooting, the camera saw a black car before the bang. That time matches the 911 call. when Brandon calls in to say he's been shot at, and they play the Ring camera video. You heard a lot about Jeep color, but every photo, it looks different. They're all the same Jeep. Color is perspective. We know Brandon's Jeep was shot at by a large round. They couldn't find the full projectile, but that is a bullet hole. That was a shot they heard. After Alex Cox missed, he searched for how to get out. While Alex is talking to Chad Daybell on the way home, knowing Brandon is alive, Chad and Lori go to hide the tire and the seat in the storage unit. This is Lori, who helped them get them taken out to assist the shooting conspiracy. Alex Googles Idaho Falls Airport because he knows how to get home from there. Alex and Lori are both searching to see news in the city Brandon was shot at. We know about the gunshot residue on the windows of the Jeep. More jury instruction stuff. I'm going to cut a lot of this because it's mostly just rereading what you heard at all the trials, the same euphemisms and comparisons. A lot of it isn't even trial specific. They detail Lori's acts to knowingly aid the conspiracy: burner phone, seat, tire, calls, searches, more. Lori didn't just do those things, she did them to further a first-degree murder. Potential defenses: there wasn't a shooting. The hole in the car is by a tire iron or whatever other defenses there were. But yes, there was a shooting. It's a bullet hole, there are bullet fragments, and Brandon called 911 after being shot at. Well, other defense: Melanie did it. She had a financial motive. I'm not here to tell you Melanie wasn't involved in this. I'm here to tell you this defendant was also involved in this. Multiple people can be involved in a conspiracy, and they were in this case. Melanie was the only one with the address. She was involved, but she wasn't it. Lori made sure her brother could help Melanie by killing Brandon by getting the Jeep ready for him, providing the alibi while he was gone to cover it up. She isn't responsible for what her brother has done, but she is responsible. She's assisting, promoting the crime. She's helping to get the phone, to get ready, to get the Jeep ready, to cover up for her brother, to hide those extra parts, to Google how to get the Jeep ready, and then figure out what went wrong and what to do after. Brandon knew who was involved. The defendant is trying to explain away evidence by saying a single piece could mean something else than what it is. Could a Coke bottle break and a single shard of glass in the street exactly match the glass from Brandon's window and be in the location where his car drove by? Tire iron makes the hole. Hairspray confused with gunshot residue. Someone else with a Texas Jeep wanted to kill Brandon. Alex was in Idaho. Called her. Don't fall for her, what is the wording she used? Don't fall for her, I don't know if it was lies or stories about what is possible when evidence shows what occurred. Look at all the evidence together. Lori conspired with her brother to kill Brandon. Find her guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Lori is up. Immediate sniffles at the podium. Oh my God, we know where this is going. Does her best sing-songy fundy voice is what it's what it kind of is. It's like that very submissive, feminine baby voice. A lot of people call it a fundy voice. If you know, you know exactly the voice. If you haven't listened to Lori, you know the voice. If you have listened to Lori, you definitely know the voice. When a family breaks apart, it is a tragedy. I'm not continuing in a voice like that. It'll be too bad. With the devastation far-reaching, affecting many people. I am not exempt from tragedy. None of us are. But what we learn from it is most important. From this experience, I have studied the law and judicial system. I am going to have to stop so much during this because I have just, oh man. You're not, none of us are exempt from tragedy. We got to learn. And I've learned a lot about the judicial system. Yes, you have, multi-murderer. Family annihilator. That knowledge will stay with me forever. Even if you translate, when we experience tragedy, we can grow stronger from the experiences, and those experiences are not all negative. Mind you, she's saying this to a jury that doesn't know about the murders. They know about an attempted murder. So she's going to play this off as more lighthearted even than the last trial. You would think that people in my position would feel defensive or angry. From where I'm standing, I understand that very well, but I don't feel any of those things. You have watched me under pressure, scrutiny, and under attack. I have shown you I am not any of those things. Object to character evidence and testimony that's not in evidence. Sustained. Yes, there's going to be a lot of objections. Judge makes Lori move the mic closer, and she literally doesn't miss a beat with her story, her voice. She's playing a character. And if you've ever watched someone play a character get interrupted and start too fast, like unnaturally fast because it's rehearsed and it's obviously fake, that's what's going on right now. She's literally moving the mic and just starts back up. You can't be upset with people who are forced to look at your life from a distance or a lens intentionally distorted, or being at least very limited, like the lens they have shown you on this event. There's so much going on not included to your view. The law prevents some of these things from being shared. Objection, improper, sustained. You have seen opinions formed by strangers trying to put forward a narrative. I have shown you that there is basically no defense to something a person did or did not participate in. So my understanding here is she is essentially saying, look at me. I'm not putting on a defense because I can't put on a defense because I wasn't involved. Her no defense has become her defense. Other than what you have seen is no evidence I make an agreement or commit a crime because no such evidence exists. So I'm not defensive or angry. Nobody has all the pieces. This puzzle is complex. Like most families, this is a complex issue. I like how she's like, this family drama. Like the state, I was not there. There was no agreement, no plan, no gain. I am not stranger to tragedy. Oh, Lori, how I wish they knew. How I wish they knew. The breaking up of a family is a tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon decided I was responsible for his family tragedy. She is fake crying now. Also remember, she referred to killing Charles as a family tragedy, referred to killing her kids as the same. It's not a crime, it's a family tragedy. Which knowing this in context makes me think that is the day when he's like, I will prove that you're a liar. She's like, we gotta kill him. Because she knows she would never give up. So she's like, we gotta kill him. He's gonna keep coming after me. I'm really sorry he feels that way. Objection to testimony. Judge tells the jury closing arguments to talk about what the evidence shows. I have and did support my niece Melanie. She suffered a tragedy as a young girl, and it's an incredibly difficult time in 2019. We've read the text from Brandon, June 25th, where he said he will never stop until he proves I am responsible. Well, here we are 6 years later, and I am charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make an agreement to commit a crime. There is no such agreement between me and my brother, Alex, although I did love my brother, Alex. Objection, again to testifying, sustained. No agreement shown between myself and Melanie, although I love Melanie. Objection, again, testifying, sustained. I can't tell you what happened that day on October 2nd because I was not there. Objection again to testifying. Please strike everything the defendant has said. Ugh, sorry. Bullshit getting to me. Judge says defendant is admonished. You can't argue things not admitted into evidence. The prosecutor wasn't there. Law enforcement wasn't there. Only Brandon knows what happened before he called 911. Only Brandon said he will not stop. The fact I supported Melanie in her time of need doesn't mean I am against Brandon. I had nothing to gain by Brandon being hurt. Brandon has worked with law enforcement for almost 6 years to make sure I pay a consequence. Objection to mistaking the evidence, sustained. Your job is to determine if I committed this crime, a conspiracy, an agreement, not to clearing out garbage, but an agreement to commit murder. You did not see an agreement. You didn't hear an agreement. You heard Detective Duncan say he spent hundreds of hours going over my iCloud account. They have 19 years of my accounts, text messages, calls. Objection, misstates the evidence, sustained. If there was an agreement, they would have shown it to you. There is no agreement. We have all experienced tragedies in our lives, and naturally, people want somebody to blame, someone to pay the price. My brother is no longer here, and we can't ask him about that day. There were things presented in this case that I did not know. Objection, testifying, move to strike, sustained. Things I saw. Objection, already asking to strike. Lori can't speak to things not testified at the witness stand. The judge tells her that. Because it is a theory the prosecutor wants you to see, it is limited. How can we see clearly when the law only allows a skewed view of things? The devastation his family has gone through is the tragedy. Almost 6 years. It is time for healing. Oh my God. She literally ends. It's time for healing. Look. Killed my kids. I was involved in the murder of my husband. I was involved in the murder of my next husband's wife. Tried to kill you. Who knows who else she planned to kill. Listen, it's time to heal, right? Get over it. State gets a rebuttal. Thankfully. The defendant wants you to think that Brandon has it out for her. She has tried to insinuate that Brandon was involved in working with Detective Pillar for years just to get her, but what you heard was Brandon has been working with law enforcement on multiple investigations, and in fact, Melanie is the subject of multiple investigations. Right? I gotta say, Melanie, how do they not charge her? So again, as the defendant sits up here and tries to paint a picture of her innocence and tragedy and family tragedy, she again misrepresents what was told to you at trial. She tells you there was no plan, but ignores the facts and the evidence of a very long plan. A plan that started when she began meddling in Melanie and Brandon's marriage. When the marriage was ending, she continued to help her niece Melanie, continued to aid her, and what we see in every one of these bits of evidence is a core group of people. Lori, Alex, Melanie, and Chad Daybell. The four of them working together. Do we need to have words on a video? No. That is why there's a jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence. Look at what is going on here, and it screams a conspiracy by this defendant. Melanie Boudreau, Alex Cox, and Chad Daybell to kill Brandon. Every action you see there, the defendant wants you to look at individually and pretend it can't point back to October 2nd. The plan to cover up the murder of Brandon. The obvious and screaming piece of evidence is Lori holding onto her brother's phone for days while he is gone with her Jeep without the tire, without the back seat, but with a gun. It is assisting, promoting, and conspiracy wants you to pretend doesn't exist. We don't have words, we have actions by this defendant and her co-conspirators. The state asks you to look at everything together, regardless of how many people want to cry up here, regardless of them wanting to testify up here as evidence. The evidence was presented at trial. Find her guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder against Brandon. They draw the alt jurors, and then we get a notification from the judge. Verdict will come 20 to 25 minutes after the court is notified, so stay close. State filed for aggravating circumstances, dangerous, and accomplice. Lori objects to aggravating, already stated her previously wanting a hearing, it got denied, and if they go through with that aggravation phase, she'll just stipulate to it. She stipulated to the last one. She stipulates because she'd have to sit there and watch the jury learn about her. Learn about her with a lot less restrictions than the rest of the trial. This is the Lori show. Okay? This is her revenge tour. She doesn't want people to know what she is. She wants to lie to the jury and leave before they find out. That is her goal, and that is where I end this video. We now wait for a verdict. I think she's found guilty. I think it's compelling. I think the timeline, the interconnections, everything. I mean, it was during the trial, because things were out of order, I was a little worried. At the end, they tied all of it together in a neat little bow. The timelines match. You can see her actions that make no sense. Oh, I'm clean. Like, she's like cleaning out a garage. You cleaned out a garage by removing items in it, by renting a storage unit the day before, carrying your brother's phone you had no reason to have, and then the day of, after you find out the murder failed, you and your soon-to-be husband, who's in contact with Alex, the burner phone at the location, suddenly have to take evidence out of the garage to put it in the storage unit, but then you also come the next day to get that evidence out to then put back on the Jeep. Have you ever cleaned out a garage? driven to a storage unit and then taken the items back the next day? I'm going to guess the answer is a no. Lori's entire defense doesn't make sense when you get to the evidence in the timing. The timing is what really did it. If there was anything I wish maybe could have been presented differently, it was if they had some witness where they could literally tie it all together with a literal scrolling timeline and just go through that. Just to really, have one piece of evidence, not evidence, but like one piece of testimony that the jury could sit there and just scroll through and really, here's the timeline it says here, compare to the speaking, compare to this, compare to that, and really just see it. But I think it's visualized really well when it was put in order, so I can't have complaints. I don't think they need something like that. I think they did enough. I don't think this is a hung jury at all. I think this is just guilty. I think she's guilty, and I think her next thing is going to be trying to really push appellate issues in Arizona and Idaho. She's probably going to do interviews after the verdict. Do I think we'll get the verdict tonight? I think it's still possible at this moment. Could be wrong. For all I know, during my recording, Nate Eaton's announced the jury's gone home. I think it's still possible. Most likely tomorrow. I do not think we are going into Friday. I really don't.